Hi, Greg. Thank you very much for joining us today. Metallic Minerals recently entered into a strategic arrangement with Newcrest Mining on the La Plata project in Colorado. And before we discuss the terms of the investment, provide us with the backstory on how Newcrest got involved. When did you first start speaking to them, and what were the circumstances that brought Newcrest in?
Jimmy, it's great to be back in one of your conferences. It's an exciting development with the announcement of Newcrest's strategic equity investment into Metallic Minerals. I think that the key backstory here, the La Plata project is one that's been a bit off the radar screen. It was discovered in the 1950s by Rio Tinto, explored through the 60s and then 70s by Freeport. Really hasn't seen modern exploration until Metallic Minerals' involvement picked it up in late 2019. First exploration programs in 2020, 21, and 22. And we had a major discovery hole that we drilled and announced in February of 23, just ahead of the PDAC conference. That was one of the biggest intercepts in copper gold in the industry, certainly in North America in the last couple of years, and the biggest hit ever at La Plata. It garnered a lot of attention. We had a core shack exhibit with the core on display at PDAC and had all the majors taking a look, because a U.S.-based copper gold porphyry near a highway, all the infrastructure in place in an existing mining district is really, they're fairly scarce assets, we can say. Newcrest was one of the first to really recognize the potential, and particularly because of their expertise in this kind of high precious metals rich porphyry system, which they have a suite of them in their portfolio, including their Cadia Ridgeway deposit, their Wafi-Golpu in PNG, and their Red Chris deposit in British Columbia. And so these guys really have key expertise in this type of geology, as well as in bulk tonnage block cave mining, which is the configuration we're likely looking at the La Plata project.
Greg, that was a great overview. You threw out a lot of information there, and I just want to backtrack a little bit. So you released the drilling result from this one hole in February. You met up with the Newcrest team at PDAC in the month of March. And maybe you can just give us some details about that hole. What was it specifically that drew their attention?
Yeah, so we drilled two big holes to basically test the expansion potential of the resource. We delivered a resource at La Plata in 2022, which was just under 1 billion pounds equivalent, so 900 million pounds of copper and 15 million ounces of silver, open in really all directions. So we drilled a hole starting at surface 900 meters to the south, looking to see if the higher grade zone would extend that way. Continuous porphyry mineralization from surface, but lower grade, telling us we're kind of on the edge of the system on the south, remains open to the west. But we then drilled another hole to the north, 816 meters from surface, continuous porphyry style mineralization, one of the highest grade hits ever hit at La Plata. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the best in the industry. So 0.41% recovered equivalent top to bottom, but the last 500 meters, quite spectacular grades. It ended in 5% copper, 47 grams silver, and 11 grams of gold plus platinum and palladium. So truly spectacular results. Unfortunately, we lost the hole because of mechanical problems. Target depth was 1,000 meters. So we don't even know how deep that zone goes. So clearly one of the first things we want to do is to get in and continue to test the width of that higher grade zone and just step out away from that intercept, which was the last drill hole ever drilled on the eastern end of the deposit. So quite an exciting development.
Greg, you mentioned that the resource came out in early 2022. You've done a lot of drilling since then. Are you going to work on another updated resource?
Yeah, Jimmy, we've already engaged SGS on the back of these exciting results that we put out earlier this year in 2023. So with that data, SGS is now working on the modeling to put out an incremental update. We expect that to be out here in the next month or two. That new model will form the basis for our exploration efforts in 2023 to offset and look to grow that resource estimate. One of the exciting opportunities that we'll be looking towards in future resource updates is that the historic drilling only analyzed for copper and silver. And so with our recent drilling, we recognize a very significant gold plus platinum and palladium component And that will get brought in through our drilling into future updated resources as we get enough holes in the system to allow for estimation on those metals. So that's going to be an opportunity to increase the overall grade of the deposit and the overall value, in addition to growing the size of the resource by step out.
Greg, I have spoken with many other junior mining companies who also have strategic investments with much larger mining companies. And what really surprises me about the deal that you've entered into with Newcrest is how fast it happened. And I'm just curious, what was it specifically that created this sense of urgency on the part of Newcrest? Why did they want to get involved so fast?
Well, I think Newcrest, they recognized there was interest by a number of majors, but I think they have unique experience in these precious metal-rich porphyry systems like their Cadia Ridgeway deposit, and Red Chris is another example. And so, they have unique perspective, I think, on the potential for a system like La Plata. So they very quickly entered into NDA on the project, got their teams out to site to do the technical review, and very rapidly things came together, I think, recognizing the value. And I think this kind of precious metal-rich copper system is a real focus for Newcrest, and really all the pieces fit together that way. I think in particular, because of their expertise in this kind of copper gold system, Newcrest is really a particularly good fit for the La Plata project, working with Metallic Minerals. Newcrest has stated that their objective is to increase their cash flow from copper from 25% of revenue today to over 50%, and that they have a focus on adding assets in the U.S. So it's a great fit overall for Newcrest, and particularly they bring expertise in block cave, bulk tonnage underground mining, which is the methodology we'd be looking at for this project as well. So, as we start to put together the technical committee and look at it, we're going to be benefiting not only from the cash that they put forward in this investment to drive the next exploration program, but the deep technical experience they have in this kind of geologic system, as well as in this style of mining. And so it really just rounds out why Newcrest is such a great fit for us on this project.
And Greg, you brought up a very interesting point. I didn't realize 25% of Newcrest's production comes from copper, but this is one thing we keep hearing, not only from copper companies, but gold companies. Everyone's looking for copper. Is this one of the reasons why Newmont wants to acquire Newcrest for their copper exposure?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at these large precious metal companies, they recognize that these copper gold systems have oftentimes mine lives that are measured in multiple decades, tremendous cash flow generation, and they come with precious metals in the form of credits. And so it's a great fit for these bigger companies. The average mine life for a gold deposit is 10 years. But these porphyry systems often have mine lives measured 20, 30, 40, 50 years or longer. And so these are a great just cornerstone asset for these majors, and particularly where it's not just copper, but copper that's coming along with precious metals like silver, gold, and platinum group elements.
Greg, that's a good overview of how Newcrest got involved. Now I want to examine the Newcrest deal in more detail. Can you just go through the exact terms of the deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a strategic equity investment. So they are becoming a shareholder of Metallic Minerals. This initial investment takes them to a 9.5% equity interest. That brings in about $6.3 million, which really has us funded through the next major milestones in exploration this year. They have a 3/4 warrant, which would allow them to put another $6.5 million into the company if they exercise that warrant, and that would, potentially fund the next round of work. So it really positions us for a 1-2 punch here to be able to get in and offset these discovery holes, and then to continue to grow the resource and see particularly where this high-grade resource, ends up taking us.
And does Newcrest get any sort of board representation or technical committee?
Yeah, so Newcrest has a right, once they exercise their warrant and go above 13%, to be able to nominate a director to our board of directors. We will be forming a technical committee right away, and that will be part of working on the project and setting the budget and the objectives. And, we're excited about that because, as I said earlier, it's not just that they're bringing funding. These guys bring special technical expertise in this kind of precious metal rich porphyry system that'll be a great asset for the project, along with understanding the economics of mining when you're looking at bulk tonnage underground mining.
And Greg, can other participants or mining companies still get involved in spite of this deal?
Absolutely. I mean, most analysts don't consider anything below a 19.9 to be a blocking position. So at 9.5%, they're not an insider to start with. If they exercise the warrants, they'll have, one board member, but certainly there's room for others if that was, appropriate. And certainly this is the kind of asset in this location that could be of interest to perhaps other producing companies, but also other strategics such as offtake smelters and other groups that we've seen investing in these kind of projects, in North America recently.
Greg, what are the next steps now? We've got the upcoming drilling season fast approaching. What are you and Newcrest going to do?
Yeah, so our team's been working on the follow-up drill campaign. I mean, clearly it's going to be focused on offsetting this discovery hole and then stepping out a way to really determine how wide is that higher grade interval. It starts right at surface. The bottom 500 meters was, quite spectacular, but we don't know how wide that zone is. So drilling through that zone to determine the width and then starting to offset it. In addition, we'll be looking to follow up on geophysics and bringing in some, computer technology, machine learning technology that we're developing along with some industry partners. We've got the USGS, who's identified the district as a potential critical minerals resource region. They're going to be doing some geophysical surveys and other work. So it's going to be an exciting program at La Plata this year in terms of, continuing to not only understand how big is the resource, but undertaking some of these surveys to assess some of the other targets. We've identified as many as 16 other potential porphyry targets on the property. This is the first time ever the La Plata district's been consolidated under one owner. These are areas that Rio Tinto and Freeport never had under control. So a number of really exciting targets to be tested. So it's going to be a series of news events as we undertake drilling and milestones and catalysts ahead.
And I'm sorry, how many rigs will you have and how many holes do you have planned?
So we'll start out with a 5,000 meter drill program. They'll start with one drill, and as appropriate, we can add, a second or a third. Right now we're drilling in a fairly concentrated area, so we can get a lot done with a single rig. And we'll really assess when it makes sense to start to expand beyond that to start with.
Greg, as we wrap up, you've already provided a lot of information related to the Newcrest investment, but can you summarize what news flow investors can expect in the coming months from Metallic Minerals?
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to, the start of drilling, which will be happening here fairly soon at La Plata, we've also got the updated resource that will take in those results from 2022 that we announced in February. And that expanded resource will put out. In addition, we've got a pending inaugural resource and our Keynote Silver project, which is next door to Hecla Mining and the highest grade producing silver asset for Hecla. And lastly, we've got the start of potential first production on our royalty portfolio in the Klondike region of the Yukon that could be starting to bring in cash flow. So it's going to be an exciting year in 2023 for Metallic Mineral shareholders.
Well, that was a great update and a great overview of the Newcrest investment, and good luck on the upcoming drilling program.
Thanks a lot, Jimmy. Glad to be here with you.